welcome to our September spiritual gathering. I am Denise Ortiz of MindBodyHealing.biz, and I'm really happy that you're all here with us tonight. The purpose of this group, and I started about a year ago, actually a little longer, is to get people together of like minds to see how we can help each other navigating through these crazy times that we're in. They're very wonderful and exciting, and for some they can be scary or daunting, but whatever it is, we're going to have a good ride through this time as long as we manage to stay calm and relaxed and just open up our minds for the knowledge and the things that could help us get through all of these things in a much better way. Better for us personally, for our community, and the world around us. I mean, who doesn't just want, peace and love? I'm a child of the 60s, so I learned that early on. So I'd like to thank you all again for being here. Tonight's speaker will be Carol Asaighi, and she is a shamanic healer, and she'll be discussing the 4 main forms of shamanic healing work. And then at the end, she'll be leading us into a shamanic journey that is going to be wonderful. And it's only for those who came on tonight. It will not be available on the replay on YouTube. So this is going to be a very wonderful gift that we're getting. I just wanted to let you know just a few housekeeping things. Some of you that are on the Facebook page, I know, are having trouble getting messages about the Zoom links. Facebook loves to change those algorithms. So it's best if you do send me your email so you could be on the email list. And then I could get the information of upcoming speakers and the Zoom links and into your mailbox a lot easier. Also, we're offering a lot more classes. Got around to just finishing up a 6-part series on crystals. And my good friend Vesta Millard, who is my crystal guru, is doing that class with me. And we're starting with abundance. We have one on health, love, protection, magic, and little known crystals. And for those that are local in the area, we're doing an in-person class on practical magic. And that's all about learning how to get your intuition back. We're born with it. We're told not to listen to it when we're young, and we push it aside. And it's time we bring it back because it's a powerful tool. And we all have that gut intuition. It's just getting in touch with that and learning how to live with that again. Coming up in the future, we have next month in October, on October 13th, will be Chris Gordon of Ancestral Healing, and she'll be talking all about chakras. In November, we have Suzanne Sweeney. Suzanne is from Energize Body and Mind, and she'll be speaking about the 4 keys to optimal health. And then in December, it'll be yours truly, and I will be doing a year-end wrap-up with a few surprises that you'll find about it later. Otherwise, it won't be a surprise. So tonight, we're going to talk about the shamanism a little bit first before Carol gets into the details of the, how the healing work can be done with the shamans. So if you'll excuse me, I have to put on my glasses here. Maybe a little better. There we are. So there are many references about shamans, everything from cultures from North Asia, Turks, Manchuria, Russia, North and South America. But most of them basically refer to a shaman as one who sees or one who knows the origin, a person regarded as having access to and influence in the world of good and evil spirits. Typically, you can enter into a trance state during a ritual and practice divination and healing. Shamans have basically been the foundation, the shamanism of most religions and throughout many cultures, all based on a number of precepts that are there and have been in the beginning of the time. It stood the test of time, which is why so many things are based on it or sound familiar to it. There are some core beliefs of shamanism that I found as I was searching the internet for tonight that I'd just like to go over with you a little bit. And it depends on where, you're learning the information from, but the basics are still here. So, as I said, it's the most ancient and most enduring spiritual tradition known to humanity. Okay. And over 1,000 years of trial and error, primal people all over the world have the same basic principles and techniques. Um, some of the core beliefs are that everything is interrelated and interdependent. That the natural world has two aspects: the everyday, ordinary awareness, which is like our normal everyday behaviors that we get as a hypnotherapist. I find people get behaviors in their brain, and that's how they just run on automatic after that. But then there's also the second non-ordinary awareness, and that's access through altered states. Everything is alive and has a spirit. We're woven together in the spirit world like the web of life itself. Shamanic practitioners can help others access different realms of reality through different means. The non ordinary reality is more real than the ordinary. This is where we came from. We all know pretty much that we came from somewhere up there or out there, and we came here. So going over to there is where we're from and what we need to connect to more. Because here we know how to do this, but connecting up there will make our lives so much better and so much easier. Then there are the three planes of consciousness, the upper, middle, and lower worlds, and the three realms are linked together, commonly referred to as the world tree. And the purpose of shamanic ritual is to engage the spirit world to affect specific changes in the physical world. And shamanism is based on principles that innate wisdom and guidance can be accessed through the inner senses and through trance. Shamanism is about remembering, exploring, and developing to the true self. To practice shamanism is to reconnect with your deepest core values and your highest vision of who you are and why you are here. And the reason tonight that we are here is to listen to Carol, who will tell us about the four main forms of shamanic healing: power augmentation, soul retrieval, extraction, and ancestral healing. Now, Carol has studied shamanism for 30 more years. She studied with Hank Wesselman and Jill Kuykendall, if I say that right, of Sacred
Kuykendall.
Wisdom. Oh, great. Thank you. And they were from Sacred Wisdom in Hawaii, and also with Victoria Johnson of Condor Journey. That's a shaman of the Inca tradition, I believe.
That's right.
And Carol also received an authentic initiation by an Alaskan medicine man in her 20s. Now, she worked over 30 years in New York City. Yay, that's where I worked. Love New York. And she was in the fashion district as a textile designer. She became an interfaith minister, then spiritual counselor at the One Spirit Interfaith Learning Alliance, and frequently officiating the United Nations Chapel as an interfaith minister. That must have been fascinating. I just love the UN Chapel. She merged all of her life experience and healing gifts into a thriving shamanic healing and teaching practice in Asheville, North Carolina, where she lives in a lovely garden sanctuary, which I've seen on Facebook. You need to go to her, I'm sorry, on her website. I mean, it's just beautiful. I want to go up there now. And her husband, Shaggy Dog, and an opinionated cat. And there is her husband there. Hi, Anthony. So as I show, you will see on her website all of the services that she has to offer. And you might want to get in touch with her during the month of October, because she is right now doing some just phone calls to see what we can get into in the month of November, where she can make an appointment for you. So I am certainly calling in October because I want to go on a nice little journey. So with all of that in mind, I would like to hand you over now to Carol, who will tell us all about the wonderful shamanic healing. Carol?
Thank you so much, Denise. This was great. You did a great job describing shamanism, so I appreciate that very much. And I'm going to start with a quote. Healing is 20% medical and 80% spiritual. This means that healing can only be done from a state of love. You cannot do it from a place of fear. And if you are not in love, don't do it. That's from Papa Henry. He was a Hawaiian elder and medicine man. And this is in the book Spirit Medicine by my teacher, Hank Wesselman. So most of my traditional studies has been in Hawaii, so I'm going to be referencing some Hawaiian terms. But to just talk about if you were to book an appointment, and as Denise was saying, I do discovery calls before I book an appointment because it's very important that you feel an alignment with your practitioner and that the practitioner feels an alignment with you. No one wants to get in over their head. But when I talk to potential clients, I always review these 4 main healing modalities. And just to reiterate that shamanism is really a medicine and a healing tool. It doesn't have any interactions with any religions. Now that I live down south, I've had Southern Baptists seeing me. I've had all kinds of different faith traditions, and it doesn't really affect anyone's belief in this way. And it's a healing modality. So the first kind of healing that all shamans do is what we call power augmentation, which means if you visit your local shaman or shamanic practitioner, the first thing they're going to check is how is your power? And in Hawaii, they call that mana, your personal power. This is your energy field. And are you operating at the highest possible level? And if you're not, this is the most important thing that we want to address. Our power comes from our immortal soul. And the Hawaiians refer to that as the aumakua. That means of the parent, our immortal parent throughout time. This is the higher soul where we come into life and where we return to. So when we're checking for how your power is, we're checking how connected you are. The other thing we want to check on is, are you having any energy drains? So we are meant to feel empowered every day. We are meant to feel connected to who we really are and our higher self. And things like meditation, shamanic journey work, energy work, healing work allows us to get back into balance. What diminishes our power is worry and fear and being overburdened and energy drains like the news and negative people, but also feelings of helplessness. So the shamanic practitioner can do one of many techniques in order to bring back your personal power. One of the ways that the South American shamans work, and I've been learning this the past couple of years, is cleaning out your luminous energy field. So this is your energy field that surrounds your physical body. And what we can see sometimes is that we've picked up like dirt from the road or sludge. We've picked up some heavy debris in our energy field could be exhaustion or stress. And the shaman would clear out your energy field to allow your natural state to come back in and to bring in the light from the luminous energy and the 8th chakra down into the energy body. The second very common way that shamans work with power augmentation is to do something called a power animal retrieval or a spirit helper retrieval. Power animals become a very popular word, but really all living beings have a spirit level and we are all in relationship with them. So when a shaman asks for a power animal or spirit helper to come empower their client, the one who is willing to come forward will come forward. This is part of our agreement of being here on earth, is that we have helpers. But it can also be a beloved pet who's passed over could come through, or a grandparent who is willing to step forward to provide power, protection, and support. So when I work with my clients, I always call upon the 6 directions on their behalf. I ask for the benevolent healing spirits to surround, fill, and empower them. And shamans work as an intermediary to the spirit world. So our job is to just be a clear channel and to channel that for our clients' behalf. I have seen helping spirits such as a Latino grandmother who praying the rosary on the other side, still praying for her granddaughter here. I've seen things like a snowy white owl or Batman showing up for clients. And another technique that I think is so important and can't be understated is to teach the client themselves how to have their own direct revelations and how to ask for help in the internal world of spirit. And we're going to be doing this at the end today when I lead a guided meditation. But we all have benevolent, loving ancestors, helping spirits, allies, and guides that are ready and willing to be called into action. And usually they have to be called into action unless we're in a serious state. And most of the time they communicate to us just through intuition or dreams, but it's so empowering to have that direct connection yourself. I was fortunate to know a Hawaiian elder named Hale Makua, and he said, the positive polarity of a spiritual experience is validation. So I have noticed in my practice, when I am telling a client that their grandmother is praying the rosary for them, they most likely have felt this themselves. But to hear it from a trusted practitioner is so comforting and reassuring that it becomes empowering. It is validating. They feel that they are not alone. And we all must just remember this. The second most common form of shamanic healing is soul retrieval. Now, that's the majority of my practice, but they can all interweave. And soul retrieval is a shamanic expression based on the premise that we have times in our lives where we have soul loss. Soul loss, we all have soul loss. It's not as maybe scary as it sounds, but this is our term for it. It can be big. Soul loss is caused by trauma or perceived trauma. So, of course, there can be the trauma of abuse, bullying. There can be the trauma of not really being wanted by a parent when you're born. And one of the common times I see soul loss is between the ages of 4 to 7. That's when we're typically talked out of our magic and we're forced to forget our imaginary friends, or we're told, no, you're not really speaking to God directly. This is when, in our culture, we become indoctrinated into a religion of our parents or a school system. There can be soul loss at times of great confusion or lack of initiation. So traditional cultures initiate at certain times of a person's life, and we've lost a lot of initiation and ritual. So I see soul loss often between the teenage and early 20 years when the individual is confused about their path and constantly being asked, what do you want to do with your life? So confusion in and of itself can cause some soul loss. Soul loss can happen as a result of divorce, your own or your parents'. I've seen soul loss happen as a result of marriage, even being happily married. Culturally, we are often told you have to give up a part of yourself in order to be in relationship. And that is not necessarily the healthiest thing to do. Of course, there's times of grief and losing a loved one or a job, making a big move. Surgery and anesthesia can cause soul loss. The unconsciousness makes your soul leave. So it is kind of a form of disassociation from a traumatic situation. And in that way, it's a brilliant coping mechanism. And there are varying degrees of fragmentation. If you were a former soldier or police officer, you would have probably the kind of trauma they call post-traumatic stress syndrome. And that can be very, very serious. Over the course of your life, if you've had significant soul loss, you're likely to feel depressed. You could have debilitating anxiety, apathy. Many people describe just not feeling like themselves anymore. And also, many people say, after this happened, I never felt like myself again. Or really, it's shocking when a client can come out and really say, I lost myself in that marriage or in that relationship. So most people that I work with have a sense of awareness, and especially when I bring it to their attention, like what happened to you when you were 14, because the way I get the information, I do a divination or a diagnosis journey before I work with the client, and I get the ages kind of like a football hut, 7, 14, 23, 45. And if I bring this up, then they can recall. And I don't bring it up to re-traumatize. We bring it up because that soul part or you have healed enough for them to return. And the returning of the soul parts bring you back life force energy. It's like you're a Swiss cheese, the more soul parts you lose, and then you have your chi back. The third kind of shamanic healing is called extraction work. That would imply that you have an intrusion. And an intrusion can be a negative belief or thought form. In the Western culture, I'm often extracting repeating thought patterns from the mind. And this could have occurred because of cultural indoctrination or a belief held by a family of origin, like we don't do that, or perhaps generational poverty. An intrusion can be a physical illness, and a physical illness caused by a belief or an environmentally induced situation. Also, we live in a very codependent culture, and energies in our culture are often merging. So we get messages like, at Valentine's Day, you have to give your heart away, or we're supposed to feel things that other people are feeling to fit in or be in a group or to feel safe. Consider a child of an alcoholic mother who needs to prop their mother up or cook dinner. They may be giving the mother energy, or they may be taking on the mother's energy in order to try and help her. We have a lot of codependent situations in our culture. Work is a very codependent situation, relationships. And having that energy of another it never serves you and it never serves the other. So often when we lose someone, we'll send a part of ourselves with them, or they'll leave a part of themselves with the person left behind. And what I always see is the person on the other side does not know what to do with your energy. So it is important to say goodbye and pull your energy back and know that they are in good hands. Intrusions wreak havoc on a client, and they often feel a huge sense of relief once it is pulled out and removed. And many times, a soul retrieval cannot happen before an extraction because there's something taking up space in your energy field. So I wanted to just share a story about an incredible healing session I had. It was really powerful for me, and it was very beautiful. And in 2021, Hank, my teacher, passed away in February. And in May, I went out to Hawaii to pay my respects to his widow. As I was flying there, And when I arrived, I got an email in my email box that Hank had referred me to the woman who was the head of social health and welfare for the city of Honolulu. And she had a police officer who had the worst PTSD she'd ever seen. And she had reached out to Hank before he died, and he referred me, but she didn't write to me till I was literally in the air and asked me to do a long distance session. So I called her the minute I got there and I said, Lisa, I'm here. I'm ready. Let's do it. I'm ready for this. It was really remarkable. And she told me a little bit about this police officer, that she tried all of her healing modalities. He could not talk about the situation. He had seen two of his partners murdered. It was a very brutal crime. And he couldn't sit. He couldn't really even walk. He couldn't watch any television. They were trying to get him to watch cartoons. He was in a very bad place, very dark place. And so as a last resort, she called the shaman. So I did my diagnostic journey, and what I saw was that this man had been a soldier in Iraq and Afghanistan. He had been a firefighter and now was a police officer. He was a person of service. And that last incident, he saw the darkness of humanity. Now I see in the spirit world, and I believe that spirit is benevolent, 100% benevolent. But the distortions that the human mind makes creates an energy that gains momentum. And this had completely eclipsed him. He had taken this on, and it was filling him up. So before I even met him in person, I was in my hotel room in Honolulu. I did the extraction work of removing this very dark energy of human distortion. Then I did the journey, and I saw the two partners, and I was ready by time I came to see him. Now, he wasn't sure, but I kept doing the work every day. So finally, it was a Wednesday when I landed. It was Friday when I worked with him. He would only work with his therapist in a church. This is how terrified he was of this dark energy. So when I got there, I was very prepared because I had done my journey work. I saw the soul parts. He had 3 soul parts ready. I saw the day that he decided to be of service, actually, which was when he was a child. And he had been playing with his uncle. And he wanted to be a pilot. They were playing with a plane. And on the way home from Sunday dinner, his uncle was killed in a car accident. He was only 11. So I saw these 3 soul parts that were ready and willing to come back. And I went to this church. It was on the VA's compound. And one of my gifts is mediumship. So I was able to channel the 2 police officers. The first one, I did not know, but I kept seeing this young woman with a rainbow over her head. And it was a young woman who had passed. And the first one was a Hawaiian guy, and he just said, "We're okay, bro." And he's like, "Oh, that sounds just like Takiki." So okay, we were okay there. But when she told me, and he was pacing the whole time, was that he did not allow her to die alone. And because he was with her, she saved his life. Now, once I said this to him, the floodgates opened. He had not spoken about this situation in 8, 9 months. And he said, she had been shot. I picked her up. I carried her into the ambulance, and I didn't want to leave her. So the other guy went down and got shot and killed in the crime scene. But she said to him, "I knew what I was getting in for, and you need to be here." He needed to come back to life. So he talked and talked and talked. It was the first time he had been able to talk the whole story, That was very healing for him. And then I had the 3 soul parts. You know, I use a rattle or a drum. When I travel, I take a small kit, shaman's medicine kit, had the rattle. And I very gently rattled because he was very sensitive to sound. And I had all 3 soul parts that were ready to come back. And he was now sitting down for the first time in months. And then this is what happened. Batman came through. And this is one of these defining moments. Do I go ahead and say, Batman's here? Well, I did. I trusted myself. I trusted Batman. And I looked at this man, this police officer, and his name was Tony. And I said, Tony, Batman's here, and he's bringing your soul parts back. And he looked up at me, and tears filled in his eyes. And he said, I love Batman. I had a Batmobile. Batman's my favorite. So you never know. You never know. And then I blew his soul parts into his crown, as all shamans do. By Monday, he was able to put his arm around his wife again. He started therapy. He was able to talk. A matter of fact, 6 months later, his wife called me and she's like, Tony's 110%. Now you need to help me. So this is just a remarkably beautiful example of how when we do healing on the energetic plane, the physical changes. So the 4th kind of healing work that we do is called ancestral healing work. So we do the power augmentation, the soul retrieval, extraction if it's needed. And then ancestral healing is very important. In the Hawaiian mystical tradition, it is believed that when we take our first breath, our first ha, the ha and aloha, we inherit 1/3 of our mother's energy field and 1/3 of our father's energy field. And the other third comes from our aumakua, our immortal oversoul. That means that any unhealed energies or distortions from either of our parents can be inherited. Now, the further back it is, if it's a grandparent, you have a little bit of less of it in your energy. But depending on if it's nurtured, if that distortion is nurtured, then you can have a lot of it. And since energy never dies, we cannot disconnect from those who give us life. These fields record imprints in our energy and in our ancestors. And I myself can see back 2 or 3 generations to usually the beginning of the distortion. So, for example, I can see if a grandparent was living during the Great Depression. And that can precipitate things like alcoholism, abuse, and a poverty mentality. That the client may feel like, I'm so successful, I'm so good at my job, but I can't ever quite make enough money, or some things like this. Illnesses. If you had a grandparent die of throat cancer, it's not uncommon that around the same age, you may get a sore throat, an infection, and that's where ancestral healing work helps, because you or your shaman will go back in time and do the healing for that ancestor. An interesting form of ancestral wounding is, I would say, inherited soul loss. So I've had quite a few examples of this. It's remarkable. I have a client who booked a session for me. He's Pakistani American, and I found that he had a 16-year-old soul part that was ready to return. And when I told him this, he said, that's when we immigrated to America. But what I saw was a connection, like a cord. And I said, and I get the feeling your mother also had soul loss when she was 16. And he said, that's when she was forced to move from India to Pakistan because she was Muslim. It was the creation of that country. She knew no one in Pakistan, and she was just as scared as he was. So that energetic imprint carries on. I had a lovely young woman with stage 4 lung cancer, and a 13-year-old soul part wanted to return. And she said, that's how old I was when my mother died of lung cancer. And I said, I see you have a daughter. And she said, oh, yeah, she's 13 now. So this is a repeating ancestral wound. But I will say, on the positive aspect, you can inherit, and we do, of course, inherit the gifts and talents from our ancestors. You know, I know for me, my mother was always having visions and dreams, and her mother too, I believe, but it was considered an old wives' tale back then. So we inherited this ability to be seers, to have prophetic dreams. But some of the interesting things are women who are working on their careers whose grandmothers were brilliant, but were never able to have a job or express their creativity or their intellect. So we can bring that healing energy forward too. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a guided meditation, unless we have any questions on anything I've shared.
No, it looks like we're good for right now. Or they're just going to take all this in, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, they're going to have all these questions going through their head saying, wait a minute, wow. I mean, this, thank you. I mean, it's wonderful information. It's really amazing. And the people that you've, come across and helped, I mean, it's phenomenal. It's just very powerful.
It's very powerful. It really is a gift to work this way and to be that person for someone else. And the gift of them sharing these vulnerabilities with me, of course, has grown my soul immensely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know, as a healer, that lots of times you get clients who have an issue you're working on yourself right at that time.
Yeah. I love that synchronicity.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is Carol is going to take us on our shamanic journey. This will only be for the people who are here live in the Zoom today. So for those who are now watching this on the replay, I'd like to say goodbye to you, and I do thank you for watching. Well, I'd just like to start wrapping things up. And Carol, I want to thank you so very much for taking on this wonderful journey, all the wonderful information you gave us. I'm so glad that you were able to join me. It's a long story, but I got to meet Carol through a series of knowing a different people that sent me here and there. And magically, it worked, and she's here, and I'm so grateful and so thankful. And I'd love to have you come back again some other time, because this was just absolutely wonderful.
I love it.
So
Thank you so much, Denise. Yeah, it was really Hank, my teacher, who connected me with the client. Yeah, it's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything works the way it's supposed to. Wonderful synchronicity of this world. So I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. And if you want to get a hold of Carol, her information will be at the end of the video. And this will be on replay on YouTube. So you could always go back and watch it as many times as you want. And just want to remind you again, next month we have Chris coming in to speak about everything but the chakras, everything having to do with the chakras, because Chris is going to take us through some healing points there. And in November, we'll have Suzanne talking about optimal health. And just let people know, share this class with people. We're going a lot more people coming up in the future to come on and talk and help us through the everyday living that we're just going to make better by sharing things with each other, healing with each other, and just making ourselves and our community better all around for a much better world. There's a portal near here for a new birth, and I'm going down that path, and I can't wait until I get there. But I'm so glad you're all here along on the journey. So again, on behalf of Carol and myself, we'd like to thank you all. And again, I'm Denise Ortiz, mindbodyhealing.biz, and have a great evening and have a wonderful fall. Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Denise. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.